Are you stuck in the planning to launch phase while the rest of the podcast world moves on without you? In this video, we're going to go over 10 fatal mistakes entrepreneurs make when launching their dream podcast. But no worries, I got the solutions for you, so let's get started. Hey everyone, I'm Nick Chamberlain. Since 2014, I've been helping businesses and organizations to launch and manage their podcasts. Today, I've produced over 7,000 episodes, many ranking in the top 10 across all platforms. If you want a full list of all the podcasts I have worked on, please just go to everywordmedia.com/podcasts. Or you can just look right here. Here's 15 of them that I worked on in the last couple of years. But there's a lot more. All right, so let's go over the mistakes and the solutions. Mistake number 1, getting overwhelmed. This one mistake is going to prevent you from launching a podcast at all. You overthink everything, and then overthinking leads to overwhelm, and then overwhelm causes inaction. And when you're not acting, you're falling behind and you're not even launching a podcast. So what's the solution on this one? Just schedule 10 minutes. Pause this video, write down each of these steps, and once you start taking action, overwhelm will diminish. And when overwhelm diminishes and you start taking action, action leads to more action. Step 1 is to plan your podcast. We're going to figure out what it's all about. Why do you want to do this in the first place? What's the purpose of it? And who will it serve? That's going to be the most important part. Step 2, purchase the equipment. Now, this is going to be another journey in itself, but I have made a quick little cheat sheet of all the recommendations in the link below. It's just a Google Word doc. I'm not going to sign you up on any email list. Step 3, record the episode. Step 4, pick your music. Step 5, edit your episode. Step 6, create your show art. Step 7, find a hosting provider. Step 8, publish your podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Now that you have a list of all these steps, you just go with step 1 and then you figure it out. And you check it off. Go to step 2, you'll figure it out, check it off. Step 3, and so on. Just start taking action, because action leads to results. Mistake number 2, taking on too much. When you take on too much in your business and you're running every little department, doing every little thing, you're going to eventually run into burnout and overwhelm. And burnout and overwhelm, again, it leads to inaction. And if you're not taking action in launching your podcast, it's never going to happen. So what's the solution for this? All right, this is a fun solution. Write down every single task that you do, whether it's for your business, your personal life, just write everything down that you do. Now that you have that long list of tasks, just go down each one line by line and figure out what can you eliminate, what can you automate, and what can you delegate. And hopefully when you've gone through this practice, you're going to have a little bit more breathing room, which then you'll be able to start taking action towards getting your podcast launched. All right, let's go on to mistake number 3, time constraints. There's just not enough time in the day to even consider starting this podcast. But so many people have them. Even extremely busy CEOs and entrepreneurs, you see them week after week putting out new hour-long podcasts. Some even have 2 to 3 episodes a week. How in the world are they finding time to do this? The solution is going to sound like no duh, but step 1, put it on the calendar. Go to your calendar, find 10 minutes, block it out, and then get started. Now there's a few ways to schedule this out. You can do batch recording, or you can record at the same time every single week. I recommend doing batch recording because it allows you to focus on the things at hand while you're doing it. For example, my client, Michael Reddington, with the I See What You're Saying podcast, he'll schedule 1 week out of the month and he'll record so many different podcast interviews. And right now, we are 3 months ahead of schedule. And then he's done for 3 months. And in 3 months from now, we're going to start the process over. But of course, he can just do a small little batch recording once a month, just so we're always 3 to 4 months ahead. Mistake number 4, making the podcast launch process way too complicated. If you think something is too complicated or too complex, you're going to easily lead to burnout and overwhelm, which we all know causes inactivity and no action is being taken. The idea of launching a podcast is always just going to stay in the back of your mind, and it's never going to become a reality. The solution is podcasting is actually super simple. All you have to do is record, edit, and publish. Yes, I know it's a little bit more about it, but it's really not too hard. You're just going to record your voice. You're going to give some value to your listeners. You're going to interview some people, talk to people. You're going to have a great time. It's a lot of fun talking to a microphone. But of course, it has to be valuable for the listeners. And if you're using the podcast to grow your business, you got to make sure that you are solving problems for your ideal client. Telling stories, always being educational, inspirational, and when you can, entertaining. Make it fun. Have fun. It's a fun thing, okay? We're going to keep it simple. Have fun. Record, edit, and publish. All right? Just keep it simple in your head, and then you won't get overwhelmed. All right, let's move on to mistake number 5. Lacking support or lacking a team to help you out, which is very obvious. If you don't have a team and you're trying to do this all on your own, you're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to lead to burnout, and you're not going to take action. And when you're not taking action, you're not launching your podcast. There's a common theme here throughout all the mistakes. So what's the solution for this? Perhaps you can get a support system or grow a team or hire a team or something. And one way to do that is to go onto your favorite social media site. There's a bunch of different groups. For example, on Facebook, there is the podcast movement. It's a group with a bunch of podcasters, and you can ask questions there, and people are trying to help you out. Another thing you can do is hire someone. It depends on where you're at in your business. Maybe you just need to find someone off of Fiverr, Upwork, or maybe you already have an in-house team that you're growing. Use them to help you. Or you can hire something like a podcast agency, which is more of a completely done for you aspect. And this is exactly what I help people out with. I take them step by step. I help them with each process along the way, making sure they are taking the right actions and the right steps. I give them accountability. I follow up, and I make sure they're following through as well. I love to help and support people in their podcast journey. And if you need any help, please do not hesitate to reach out. Don't do it alone. Okay, let's move on. Mistake number 6, fear of being ignored. Why should you start a podcast when there's already 5 million podcasts out there who would want to listen to what you're saying? Well, the good news is out of the 5 million podcasts, only around 750,000 podcasts are active. Compare that to blogs. Right now, there's 600 million blogs on the internet. And then compare that to YouTube channels. Right now, Google says there's around 51 million channels on YouTube with maybe around 38 million of those being active. So right now, the podcast space is very small, and everyone has a unique voice, a unique story, and everyone can help someone else out from their point of view. And if you're giving great value, people are going to listen. Don't worry about it. Just take action. Go plan. Go plan your podcast. Oh, another great thing about starting a podcast, if you have kids right now and you start a podcast, your kids are going to be able to listen to you years down the road. And one day you're going to be a grandma or a grandpa, and then your grandkids can listen to you. How cool would it have been if your great granddad, pappy, grandmammy started a podcast and you had like 500 different episodes for you to listen to them and take in what they said? And you would know them so well, even if you never met them. Think about that. That's wild. That gave me some goose pimples. Okay. Or goosebumps. Okay. Moving on. Mistake number 7, waiting for perfection. Waiting for the perfect time. Well, I got some bad news and good news for you. The bad news is there's never going to be the perfect time, and it's never going to be perfect. The good news is you can start today. You can start whenever you want. There's nothing holding you back. So you do not need to be waiting for perfection. You can literally start today. Just block off 10 minutes, write down the steps, and call it a day. Because you're taking action. And of course, you're not going to learn unless you start. Everyone is imperfect at the very beginning. No one comes out with the perfect podcast. There's always something to learn. You can always grow. So the sooner you start, the sooner you will learn and the sooner you will grow. So let's get started. Mistake number 8. Keeping the podcast at a low priority. Yes, there's a bunch of priorities in your life and in your business, but if you're really wanting to start a podcast, you have to increase the priority. You need to set clear goals and clear expectations and a clear understanding of what you want in your life. If it is a podcast, then look at everything else you're doing and kind of go back to that eliminate, automate, and delegate. Okay, what tasks can I eliminate and which tasks can I move down below? If you want to get a podcast started, then move it up in the priority level. Think about where your business can be a year from now if you start today. If you start 3 months from now, you're going to be 3 months behind. If you start 6 months from now, you're going to be 6 months to a year behind. So if you want to see the advantages that you can get from podcasting, you need to start today. You need to increase the priority level. See what else you can kind of bring down to that priority level. Treat your podcast like a strategic business asset. Think about how valuable this podcast is going to be to you and your business. Do you want to reap the benefits 3 months from now? A year from now? The sooner you get started, the sooner you'll reap the benefits. It does take a while to grow. So plant your podcasting seed today, water it, put some fertilizer, let it grow, let it blossom. And in a year from now, you're going to be harvesting the fruit of that podcast. Because what does podcasts do? The hosts on podcasts, they're seen as the experts. And the listeners, they get to know you, like you, and trust you. And if they don't know you, like you, or trust you, they're going to stop listening. But if they keep listening week after week, you can be guaranteed that they are going to take your advice and they're going to love listening to you. So let's bring the podcasting priority up a notch. Mistake number 9, social media exhaustion. Okay, so are you posting on all the different social media channels, trying to create unique content for each one, trying to figure out the algorithm and making sure you grow each channel, but then you just got exhausted and you're like, all right, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Well, I do have a solution for you. Pick one strategy and one method when it comes to content creation. And of course, I do suggest doing a podcast because you can schedule one episode recording per week. And with that one long form podcast, and if you make it into a video, you can take those clips and then you can repurpose those little clips and put them on all your social media channels. And then you can use software that will schedule everything out. You can hire a team or delegate it out. It's just something very easy that you can do. Sit down 1 day a week or even 1 day a month, record 4 episodes, cut everything up, schedule everything out, and post it. Your social media exhaustion level will go down. And that's why I recommend to start a podcast. Don't worry about social media. Just focus on one thing. Start a podcast. Okay, great. And mistake number 10, podcasting is an energy drain. It is just way too much work, way too much effort, way too much brain power. Where do you even get the energy to put into seeing the results of this podcast? The solution for this is to pick a topic that lights you up, that just gives you joy to talk about. And so then it's not going to feel so much like a burden or a drudgery. You're going to actually enjoy doing it. And if you enjoy connecting with others, then this is the perfect medium to do it as well. And of course, you can always change things up. You don't have to keep each episode the same. Make it fun, make it vibrant, have fun segments. You can format it any way you want. It doesn't need to be a boring, hello and welcome to my show. This is my guest. Hello, guest. How are you doing today? Okay, guest, where are you from? Tell me a little bit of background story. Okay, what do you do, guest? Oh, okay, how did you get there? Oh, okay. No, you don't even have to do interviews. It can be a solo podcast. But of course, if you want to do interviews, that's great. But make sure that you're enjoying it and that you're having fun. Because if you're not, you're going to stop. And I don't want that to happen to you, especially if you're using a podcast to grow your business. We want to keep this going. You want one strategy And I think podcasting is a great way to do that. YouTube and podcasting, combine them, use them, and let's go. So what's holding you back? Let me know in the comments what your fears and anxieties are and give me a solution to each one. And then, of course, I would love to know what your next great podcast idea is. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.